In episode 12, the birds both get arrested for trying to fight some rando on the side of the road. They have to get bailed out by Jonah and Charlotte. Even though they spent time in jail together, Marty is still pissed off at Wendy. He tells her, I don't understand how I'm supposed to funnel shipments to the FBI with Camilla running things. It's not sustainable. Wendy wants to keep Camilla close, while Marty wants to tell Omar exactly what she did so that Omar can get rid of her. Marty then apologizes for what he did to that guy on the road, saying, I don't know what that was. And Wendy tells him, I know what it was. I know I'm not easy to love. And when we're out of this, if you want to leave, you can. She doesn't say it in a confrontational way. And Marty doesn't answer, just walking off. As Marty and Wendy were busy getting arrested, Ruth was busy conniving against them. She meets with Charles Wilkes to talk about how she can go about getting either her name or Rachel's name on the license. And the idea they come up with is just trying to get Ruth's record expunged. She was a minor when all those crimes went down, and Charles has a powerful judge as a friend. It's not a done deal. Ruth is going to have to meet with this judge and really kiss her ass, showing that she's a different person than what her rap sheet says. But if everything goes well, Ruth's record will be clean, and you can easily get her name on the gaming license. When that happens, Charles will sell her his stake of the Missouri Belle, and she will have majority ownership. Ruth and Charles were not the only ones conniving against the birds, though. So is Nathan. He had a meeting with Mel where Mel told him, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to find your son because I think your son's dead. After talking with Maya, she was able to identify the man in the pictures as Nelson, a hitman for the Navarro cartel. It doesn't take Columbo to figure out what happened to Ben. Mel also tells Nathan that Wendy and Marty were investigated by the FBI. This plants the seed in Nathan's head that they must have had something to do with it. Because of that, he wants payback. So he asks Charlotte and Jonah if they want to come live with him, all the way out in North Carolina. If they do, he'll draft up the paperwork and they'll go to family court over it. The children end up telling their grandfather they do, in fact, want to go live with him. You can't blame them. Their parents are mixed up with the Navarro cartel. They could be dead any moment. So Nathan goes to the birdhouse to try to get Wendy to just sign them over, but she doesn't. She tries to slam the door in his face, telling him that those kids are never going to go with him. So he presents her with the documents for family court, saying he'll see her in court within 3 days. Since both Marty and Wendy can't go talk to Jonah about the situation, they go and talk to Charlotte. Charlotte tells her parents that she didn't know her grandfather was going to take them to family court. But she does admit that she did say they would go with their grandfather. When Marty asks Charlotte, do you want to go with him? Charlotte tells her parents, Grandpa knows things, and he's not going to go away. How are we supposed to protect you guys if we don't go with him? And Wendy tells her, I'll worry about your grandfather. That night, Marty and Wendy discuss it further, and they know they're in a tough spot because Nathan has a massive trump card. It's Mel. Mel is planning to testify at the hearing in 3 days. But Wendy cannot let her kids go with her father. After all, she hates the guy. So they start thinking of an idea of making sure Mel doesn't make it to court. The idea they come up with is getting him reinstated to the Chicago PD, and Schaefer can help them do that. Schaefer smells something funny, though. He knows that if you're trying to help out a PI become a detective, something must not be going right for you. The birds reassure him that everything's okay, but he still doesn't buy it. If they want something from him, he wants something from them in return. Either more money, which they can't give him and he knows that, or his rigged voting booths in key states. There is a line, though, that Wendy is not willing to cross, and that is it. So Schaefer tells her it's one or the other. Either you want this guy reinstated or you want Omar off the list, but pick. So they're going to have Schaefer get Mel his job back. But if they do that, they need somebody else to get Omar off the SDN list. They call up Jim, and Jim tells them that's not going to be easy. He tells them that he'll come up with a list, but it's going to take some time to get everybody on board. So Omar's going to have to sit tight, and that's not going to be easy because Omar is still sitting in jail and he wants to get the hell out. The next stop they have to make is to go meet with the police chief in Chicago, a meeting that Schaefer set up. He tells the birds that he did look into Mel, and Mel was a good detective until he had that little drug snafu. He's willing to reinstate him, but what he wants in return is a boat and a large donation to the police union. When they leave that meeting, Mel Saddam has been reinstated as a Chicago police detective. The next day, they call a meeting with Mel in a diner and give him the good news. And while Mel has thought about becoming a detective again for the last 4 years, he hates how it happened. He's conflicted as to whether to take the job or not. He knows that this is just a ploy by the birds to keep him off the stand. But at the end of the day, he becomes what he's wanted to become, since he got fired from the force. He's so torn up about what to do that he calls up his sponsor. The thing is, no matter if it's his sponsor or Maya, nobody can answer this question but Mel. So he has some things to think about. As he's pondering a big life choice, Ruth goes and meets with that judge. She all but aces the initial meeting, but the judge does tell her, I'm going to comb over your record, every single thing you've done, and then I'm going to check up on you at home. She does that, and she promises the judge, if you clean up my record, you will not regret it. I'm not going to screw up a second chance. With Charles Wilkes vouching for her, for the first time since birth, Ruth Langmore is completely clean. But she has another issue to deal with. Deputy Wyckoff stops by her house and tells her, we arrested somebody for Wyatt's murder. It's a guy who stole Wyatt's guitar and pawned it. He also pawned a bunch of Darlene's jewelry. They figured Darlene caught him, things got testy, and he killed them both. Normally, this would be great news. The issue is that Ruth knows that this poor guy didn't do it. He's just some junkie who is going to be blamed for it. So both Ruth and Mel are at a crossroads on what to do. Ruth heads to the Lazy O, where they're having a baptism. Nathan and his group are baptizing Sam into their congregation. Ruth makes the joke that they should probably charge more for that, but she hasn't stopped there to find God. She stopped there because she decided to bring Jonah Ben's ashes. Since Jonah's going to be heading to North Carolina, she figured that he would want them. So she brought the goat cookie jar. He offers to divvy it up, but she doesn't want to divvy up somebody's ashes like a bag of sugar. So she just gives them to him. Jonah asks her if she's coming to the court tomorrow, and she says, yeah, of course I'll be there. She then gives him the good news that she no longer has a record. He asks how it happened, and she tells him, Wilkes put in a good word for me. She then heads off and leaves Ben behind. While Jonah was getting Ben's ashes, the Byrds went to go meet with Omar. They have a lot on their plate. In 24 hours, they're supposed to meet at family court with Nathan, and they don't know if Mel is going to take their deal. They also have the issue of Omar to deal with. He's getting extremely impatient, and they know it's going to take at least a couple months for Jim to get that list together. On top of it, every meeting they have with Omar, Camilla is right by his side. When they arrive at the prison, the first thing he asks about is what's going on with the SDN list. And they lie to him, telling him it's in motion, but he's had his people look into it, and he knows that the motion hasn't even been filed yet. Omar doesn't think they're laundering enough money, and he doesn't think they're acting quick enough. On top of it, the woman that they know ordered a hit on him is sitting next to him, egging him on. While working on the SDN list is going to be difficult, they can launder more money. After all, they do have the Missouri Bell. So they reassure Omar that that shouldn't be an issue. As for the SDN list, he gives them an ultimatum that they need to get it done within days, not months. They tell him what he wants to hear and they leave, but they're very frustrated. They know that the extra money that they're supposed to launder is so that Camilla can buy loyalty with the lieutenants so she can take it over. They also know it's going to be virtually impossible to get him off that list within days. The Byrds don't have many options. They're in between a rock and a hard place, and this leads Wendy to call up Schaefer and tell him, I can get those voting boxes in the States. At the end of the day, it was her moral compass versus her own life. The next day, the Byrds have to get ready to head to family court. The good thing for the Byrds is Mel is nowhere to be found. He decided, after discussing it with Maya and his sponsor, he has to take the job in Chicago. He checks out of the Lazy O, but does notice on the way out Ruth's goat cookie jar. He always inquired about it when he stopped by Ruth's house, and she always said that there were no cookies in it. He just thought it was odd that it showed up at the Lazy O. But he's heading back to Chicago, which means he's not going to be able to help Nathan out. It looks like it's going to be a win for the Byrds, but there is a motion on the judge's desk, and what she rules is Jonah and Charlotte are old enough to make their own decision on the matter. And when they get out of court, Charlotte and Jonah tell their parents, we're going with Grandpa. Right away, Marty and Wendy beg their children not to do this, but it seems like Charlotte and Jonah's minds are made up. Charlotte and Jonah start telling their parents why exactly they're going with their grandfather, and the most of it has to do with Wendy. They feel like Wendy puts them in danger, and she doesn't listen to anybody but herself. She's just downright selfish. They also feel like their father is nothing more than their mother's puppet. As Marty is trying to talk his kids down from this, Wendy goes and begs her father not to do this, but he doesn't take her begging, he doesn't take her apologies, he's just planning on taking her kids. Marty has to grab Wendy, take her to the car, and Wendy ends up bashing her head against the window and cutting it pretty good. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.